On today's show, we'll break down what went wrong for the Ottawa Senators in a 6-2 loss to the Toronto Maple Leafs in Game 1 of their best-of-7 playoff series.
Certainly the penalty kill needs work, but what other adjustments can the Sens make to bounce back for Game 2?
This is Brady Tkachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today is Monday, April 21st, and Pilsy, 13 Ottawa Senators made their Stanley Cup Playoffs debut last night. Was that a factor in the jitters, especially in the first half?
I mean, I guess you could say it's slightly a factor. Like it wasn't a huge thing, but it wasn't nothing. I'll say that. And Travis Green even mentioned it in the post-game presser that maybe the first couple minutes it was a factor, but then you settle in, you get feeling okay. Sure, it's faster, the hits are bigger, the crowd is louder, the lights are brighter, but these are hockey players. Just get back to playing hockey. And I think, you know what? You got to give the Leafs a lot of credit. They came out starting the game like we wanted the Sens to do, eh? Like they were hitting huge on the first couple shifts. I think the game started off with the Leafs out hitting the Sens like 15-8 within a couple of minutes. And I was sitting there being like, that's what we needed the Sens to do to start this game off. And I think that really put the crowd into it. And then they get the first 2 goals, and then the Sens have to find a way to play catch up there. And ultimately, they weren't able to do it.
We'll get into the penalty kill. Face-offs were a huge issue in critical moments. Goaltending, a big conversation. And Brady Tkachuk played his first ever playoff game. Those conversations still to come. Shout out to the everydayers making us your first listen each and every day. And I know we're going to focus later on the penalty kill, but it was 2-0 in the first period at one point for the Leafs, and both were 5-on-5 goals. How did Ottawa break down to allow those 2 opportunities where, I mean, they had all day, all night? One was a breakaway. Mitch Marner makes a nice move, and Oliver Ekman-Larsson just beats the Senators' back checkers and made no mistake on the first goal of the series.
Well, both goals start in the Leafs' end. The Ottawa Senators trying to gain pressure, losing 2 different puck battles. Now, I mean, we're nitpicking here, but this is how the play breaks down. You're not going to win every single puck battle, and I'm not calling any player like lazy or calling out their effort on losing these puck battles, but the Leafs win the puck battle for the first goal in their own end. They transition the puck up the ice. Scott Laughton does a good job of baiting Thomas Chabot to follow him towards the benches, towards the boards, stops up, sees Oliver Ekman-Larsson is open in the middle lane. OEL makes no mistake, goes right down the middle to the slot and rips one past Linus Ullmark. That's how the first goal happens. And then the second goal, Jensen tries to flip it around the boards and tries to get it past Matthews, but he's not able to do that. Matthews catches it. And then again, this one's more of a hat tip to the Leafs than it is a full defensive breakdown, because Matthews gloves it down, immediately sees that Mitch Marner has sprung behind Jensen and Chabot and gets a pass right on the tape. And then as soon as Mitch Marner has that breakaway, it's kind of over from there. You can't really blame Ullmark on that one.
No, and I think what was frustrating about the second one is Ottawa had some offensive zone possession there, and then it was almost like they got too comfortable holding the blue line. When we previewed before the series, Nylander and Marner especially, if there's a 50-50 loose puck, they're going to start looking for offense right away. They're a great rush team. They do get high danger chances, and they're an elite finishing team, as we saw multiple times in this game. So Ottawa's really got to be aware whenever there's a loose puck that they might not get in the defensive zone, that it could be an odd man rush the other way. So I'm not saying that Jensen should be giving up the blue line that easily, especially the play was on his side. And if Ottawa does come up with that puck that Matthews ends up getting, all of a sudden you want him there to be an option for a continued zone possession. But you got a hat tip. The Leafs big guns came out and did a lot of damage. Matthews with 2 assists, Marner, Nylander both get goals in this game. And just unfortunate start after 8 years without playoffs. They don't get any leads. They did, though, make it interesting in the end of the first period. It was 2-0, and Drake Batherson, that whole shift in the offensive zone was great. Perron with the initial bring over the blue line. Dylan Cousins gets a puck on net, rebound, and they win a 50-50 puck right at the top of the goal mouth. And that was one of the rare occurrences that Ottawa was able to get to those danger areas. I almost named the first segment "Stats Are for Losers," because if you go through the expected goals at 5-on-5, the shot attempts at 5-on-5, everything favors the Ottawa Senators, zone possession, everything. But the Leafs have played that way all year. They were fourth last in Corsi percentage this year, which is shot attempts. They don't care because they're going to take advantage of their opportunities. They were the more disciplined team in game one. Ottawa let the emotions get the better of them at some points, but the reason why, and oh my goodness, Leaf fans, welcome to the podcast. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. Holy smokes. A lot of coping was in the comments in the postcast last night, but I think it was the tone that was set with the first penalty. After letting them play for the whole first period, I rewatched the entire game, and there were a lot of penalties that were penalties. And I saw a lot of people, Sens fans, saying that the Batherson cross-check, Ekman-Larsson collapses like a ton of bricks. I do see the other side of that because there was Sanderson walking down from the point, and I think that he was trying to protect his head from potentially getting a shot there, although the visual doesn't look great. He gets cross-checked in the shoulder and goes down grabbing his head. I get that, but Sanderson was in a shooting position in that lane. So I'm not going to nitpick a couple of the calls. Ridley Gregg obviously deserved the penalty there. No doubt about that. Rode up the shoulder right into Tavares' head. I get that. But when you set the tone on a defenseman trying to make an outlet pass and turning his body as he does and just getting crunched, is that not the definition of playoff hockey, making sure to finish all your checks? And I mean, it's unfortunate, but Tanev popped back up. I said last night, I'll say it again. Tanev was probably the most surprised guy on the ice that there was a penalty called on that play.
Yeah, and I think it's different, Ross, if it's a huge physical enforcer that's preying on a smaller skilled guy. Like, let's say that situation is flipped and it's Tanev crushing Stützle like that. I think maybe that looks different, but especially when it's Tim Stützle just finishing his check like that, that's where it's
right back up.
Yeah, like Tanev's probably like, yeah, that's a fine play. You could do that to me hundreds of times a game, and I don't have an issue with that. And I think where it's vindicating for us to see that, we're not just homers complaining about it, is I saw a bunch of former NHL players getting on that point, being like, that cannot be the penalty that starts this game off. Yeah, like PK Subban was one of them.
Jason Demers was in my DMs.
Yeah, like when it's guys like that are like, oh, why is Tim Stützle getting penalized on that play? That's the one I had the most issue with, especially since it's the first penalty, because I feel like with the playoffs, especially game one, players and refs are having this, I don't want to call it battle, but it's almost like a give and take with where's the line? Like, can we do this? Okay, no call. Okay, so that's cool. Can we do this? Ooh, nope, we're getting called on that, so we've got to dial that back. So when Tim Stützle gets called on that play, it sends a message to the players, and a confusing one, I'm sure, for both teams, being like, wait, did he cross the line there? Are we not able to do what Tim Stützle did there, just finishing his check? And then it becomes a blurred line, and then it's not a great way to start off the game.
No, and then it deteriorated into a debacle in the second period in particular, and we'll get into what caused not only the downfall of the PK, but also the best face-off man in the league losing 3 draws to set up goals. Those are all reasons that the Senators lost this game, as was the goaltending. It wasn't the reason, but it was a reason, because Anthony Stolarz was excellent in the Leafs goal, and Linus Ullmark was okay at best in the Senators' goal.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. And that was one of the biggest kind of head-to-heads with everybody doing their playoff series predictions. How does each team match up each way? Sens fans saying, hey, we got a Vezina winner. Our goalie's better. Sure, in the playoffs, his numbers aren't great, but Stolarz has never even started a playoff game. And the game he did get into with Florida last year in the playoffs did not go well for him statistically. So that's where Sens fans felt they had the edge. And then Leafs fans are saying, hey, Stolarz was on an absolute heater. He had great numbers during the regular season. He's going to be their number one guy. And look, you can't argue it. Stolarz was easily by far the better goalie last night. And Ullmark knows that. The Leafs know that. The Sens players know that. Stolarz knows that. Game 2 is coming up here. Linus Ullmark got the mind of a goldfish. He's got to figure out a way to flush that game, forget it, and move on. And I'm confident he can do that.
And it was really at the start of the second period where Ottawa had 2 opportunities to tie this game up at 2 apiece and could not finish, which has also been an issue for Ottawa this year. You got an elite finishing team in the Leafs against a team who has shot well below league average all season long. Brady Tkachuk can't finish on a breakaway, and then Shane Pinto all alone on a seam pass and cannot beat Stolarz. There's another opportunity a little later where on a power play, the Senators took a shot right off of the knob of Stolar's stick. Zetterlund had a chance there. We'll also get into Fabian Zetterlund, who only played 9 minutes in that game.
Also, Ross, one thing I noticed, and I'm not sure if it hit the knob or just the end of Stolar's stick. Do you see the amount of tape that guy has on the knob of his stick? Like, I wonder if there's a certain point where refs look at that and they're like, okay, like, how big of surface area can you take up with the tape on the end of your stick? Obviously, I'm grasping at straws here, but that is a ridiculous size at the end of that stick that ultimately ends up making a big save.
Yes, and this was not the be-all, end-all. It wasn't in overtime, but certainly if Ottawa tied that game up at 2 before the parade to the penalty box, things could have been different. But how can things be different for Game 2? We'll discuss adjustments that we need the Senators to make going into the second of this best of 7. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. The Stanley Cup Playoffs, they're here. They're happening right now. And if you've never been to a live NHL playoff game, it's unlike anything else. I'm so excited for my first playoff game in Ottawa, Game 3. The intensity, the speed, the energy in the building, it's next level. And thanks to Game Time, getting in the door is easier and more affordable than ever. Game Time is the fastest way to grab playoff tickets, even for those must-see matchups. Prices actually drop as puck drop gets closer, and with last-minute deals, you can save up to 60%. And it's not just for sports. Check it out for concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Turn on the all-in pricing feature, and that's going to show you the total cost up front. No surprise fees at checkouts. I hate that. Don't deal with that with Game Time. The app shows you panoramic seat view, so you know exactly what you're getting before you buy. And with Game Time's ticket coverage, I know I'm protected, whether it's cancellation protection, job loss assurance, or their 24-hour return guarantee. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
All right, Bill, the Senators lose Game 1 of this best of 7, 6-2, the final score. Ottawa goes 0 for 2 on the power play, and the Toronto Maple Leafs go 3 for 6, including back-to-back power plays within 3 minutes in the second period. The William Nylander goal, the 4-1 goal in this game, was on a 5-on-3. But there's a common theme between all of the Leafs power play goals.
And a big part of power play and penalty kill success or failure, with the new way that the NHL does it, you get a power play, the draw goes in the offensive zone. That face-off is absolutely crucial. And both teams know that, Ross. Both teams put their number one face-off guys in those situations. Claude Giroux up against John Tavares. We touched on this a little bit, Ross, but I think in hindsight, we should have covered this more because these guys are ultimately the number one face-off guys for their team. Claude Giroux leads the league in face-off percentage for this season at 61.5. But John Tavares, sure, he's a little lower at 58.3. But one thing you got to take into account is the amount of face-offs taken. Tavares took 1,300 draws. Claude Giroux under 1,000, 976. I believe that's it's like 332, not a math guy, draws more. And it showed that John Tavares was comfortable there because in all 3 of the Leafs power play goals, John Tavares wins the face-off. and the Leafs are able to score in less than 10 seconds on all 3 seconds, 8 seconds, and 9 seconds into their power plays. Like you talk about the penalty kill being ineffective, but they don't even have a chance if that's how quickly things are happening.
Yeah, and I look at the Nylander one as obviously a little different, being a 5-on-3. Sure, they win the face-off, and that one, it's a great play from Nylander. He's got a passing option to Matthews for a one-timer on the right, and what does he do as a right shot? He makes it look like he's going that way. He's moving right, moving right, and obviously Ullmark's probably cheating a touch as well, and then he shoots back across his body to the left side. Like that's an elite player making an elite play. But the other 2 goals are where I'm like, come on, like don't lose your defensive structure just because you lose the face-off. And I felt like that was the case. Highmore goes right to the net, and if you're going to be the guy that goes to the net, you got to be able to box out. Tavares was wide open. I felt like Zub got a little too high as well on his man. It was just poor defensive structure off of a lost faceoff. So if I'm in that Senators team meeting today, I'm talking about, okay, what do we do if we lose that opening faceoff on the penalty kill? Now, I'm not going to advocate for Giroux not to be the guy. He's shown over the course of a 15-year career that he is the Senators' best faceoff guy, and he's going to win a lot of those. But when you lose, how are you going to get into your defensive structure? And it kind of begs the question, because it was Matthew Highmore out there with Giroux both times. He's not fast enough on the back door on the Nyes goal. Like his job is to shadow Austin Matthews on the penalty kill, and that's already a mismatch to begin with. But when Matthews creeps down there, the puck comes to the back door, and Highmore can't get a stick on it. That Philly game, that one goal he completely saved, we could have used that on the backdoor play where Nyes ends up just tapping it in. Now at that point, it's already curtains. It's already a 5-2 game with less than 7 minutes left. But it's those things where you're hoping to build for the next game. You're not hoping to, okay, whatever, let's just let this one slide. No, every single battle, we saw it at the end of the game with the 2 skirmishes. I won't call them fights, but skirmishes at the end of the game. But yeah, Pilsy, they got to clean that up off the face-off and how they're going to get into their defensive positioning if they lose it.
Well, and it's tough too, Ross, because the Leafs are doing something pretty unconventional. Not many teams do this, the 5-forward power play. That's a lot of offensive talent on that unit. And I had some Leafs fans telling me that had been a point of controversy throughout the end of the season. They were like, okay, I get what we're going for here, but it's not really working. Now you've allowed them to gain that confidence that can work. And when you've got those guys, they're top high-end guys feeling confident that if they get a power play, they're all getting cookies and they're all finding ways to score. That's a dangerous thing. And the Leafs play that style of game where they're not just going to throw muffins at the net and try to work for rebounds. They're going to wait till they're in high-danger scoring opportunities, and then they've got the guys that can finish it. If you've got 5 of those guys on the ice with the man advantage and they're confident, the Sens could be in trouble, and Linus Ullmark is going to have to be the number 1 penalty killer if they're going to have a chance in this series.
If somebody can find me what the career face-off numbers are between Claude Giroux and John Tavares, I would love to see it. Obviously, those guys played Philly, New York Islanders, ton together back in the day, and then with the Leafs and Sens the last 3 seasons, because Tavares cleaned them out in the dot last night, and that's going to be a point of emphasis going forward for me, is how is Claude Giroux going to answer the bell in the face-off dot? Throughout the game, he went 1 for 5 against John Tavares. He went 1 for 4 against Austin Matthews, a perfect 2 for 2 against his former Flyers teammate.
And even 4 for 11 total, Ross. Like 36%. That is not the Claude Giroux we're used to seeing.
Thought you weren't a math guy, man. Look at you adding that up.
No, I got the face-off summary here. I couldn't do that percentage on my own.
Oh, man. So that's an adjustment. And on the road, obviously, you got to put your stick down first. And Ottawa was thrown out of a ton of face-offs, even ones where they weren't thrown out, like the opening face-off that took 20 seconds to go down. Matthews may as well have just had his stick in position the whole time just to put it down. That was outrageous. I was pretty happy. I will say, early on in the series, you're looking for any sort of edge. I was like, yeah, way to snap it back, Timmy. Let's go.
Yeah, it was nice to get that first draw, but I mean, oh my God, what a buzzkill to start the Battle of Ontario. That linesman just standing there. It's like 6 false starts. Like, just drop it. Let's go. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Was the moment too big for the refs and linesmen?
Playoff jitters there. He's like,
Yeah.
oh, what do I do? What do I do?
Exactly. Look, at 5-on-5, the Sens were fine. I don't think they were great because high danger chances.
I don't know. I would go in between great and fine, though, Ross. I would say they were good. Right, like I think that's fair. Like, especially you look at natural stature. Like, what was their expected goals percentage? Wasn't it like 64, 5-on-5?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, it was 64.8. But high danger shot attempts were 6-5 for Ottawa. Like, if you're like, Ottawa had 64 shot attempts and only 6 were high danger. The Leafs only had 36 shot attempts and 5 were high danger.
Definitely. And I know you can't approach the game like this, but take out the 3 power play goals and you're looking at a 3-2 win, 5-on-5 for the Leafs, right?
Kinda. Ottawa's goal, I think, was 6-on-5 because they had the delayed penalty.
Yep, that's fair. That's fair. But I mean, even still, like, take out man advantages of any kind and just even strength. And this appears to be a much closer game, and that's got to give the coaching staff at least something to build off and say, look, I know the result 6-2, it looks terrible, and we're not trying to put lipstick on a pig here, but we have confidence knowing that if we can be more disciplined, we at least can hang with these guys and we can find ways to try to trade chances a little bit better. And we know Linus Ullmark is going to be better than a 750 save percentage. Like that is for sure. And if we can get better goaltending, get a little bit more momentum on our side, because that was another thing, Ross. The Leafs were able to kill momentum very effectively, especially that 4-2 goal. When really Greg scores that, part of me was like, okay, still a ways to go, but they're at least within striking distance here. And I believe it was 44 seconds later, the Leafs got that
45, but who's counting?
Okay, 45 seconds later, the Leafs get that goal to make it 5-2, and then that was it. That was like, you were done at that point.
And all 3 of the Leafs' even strength goals, the play started in their own end. So that's something to watch through transition. The Senators have to be cleaner and get a lot more stops if they're going to stop this Toronto Maple Leafs high-powered offense that takes advantage of their opportunities. What other key adjustments need to be made? There's one lineup note I'd like to see change, maybe 2. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at Amazon Fire Stick. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn on any TV and it can be your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. Endless entertainment. With 4K streaming, you can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services. You got Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. I use my Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K for all my sports watching needs, Sportsnet, MLB app, and more. And I can even play Xbox exclusive games like Starfield. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started today. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen.
All right, Pilsy. So the Ottawa Senators do lose game 1 on the road, 1-0, and I'm seeing a lot of comments about the Sens diamond formation on the PK. I don't even think they had time to get into their PK formation, Pilsy.
Yeah, the diamonds were not created there. There was no glitter. There was no sparkle.
Lab grown.
Those are lab grown diamond formation penalty kills right there.
What other adjustments need to be made ahead of game 2?
We talked about this a bit on the postcast, and we didn't really get, or at least I didn't see more of an explanation for it, but the Highmore over Cousins decision was interesting. Now, maybe Cousins re-aggravated the knee injury. He did have knee surgery this year and did only come back for a couple of games. But when he was back, he looked great. He was, I believe he had 2 assists in 3 games, right?
Goal and an assist. That breakaway
goal and an assist. Yes. And he didn't look injured. So we know Travis Green is a Matthew Highmore guy. They've had experience together in Vancouver. He likes his speed. He likes using him on the penalty kill, but those were not factors in Matthew Highmore's game. And I certainly think that Nick Cousins would be more effective in this playoff series than Matthew Highmore can be and was last night. So I'd like to get an explanation for that decision.
Well, they said for the PK. That's what Travis Green said pregame, and it's like, okay, well, it didn't work. He was on the ice for all 3 of those PK goals, or 2 of them. The other one's 5-on-3. It was just Giroux up front, but it didn't work. And you brought in Nick Cousins for these type of games.
Yep,
so
100%.
Let's make that adjustment right off the bat. Get Nick Cousins in the lineup. And look, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but Fabian Zetterlund needs to play more than 9 minutes. He was noticeable in limited ice time. Let's get him out there with some skilled players.
Totally, Ross. And I think most Sens fans have that take, but if you're gonna present a problem, what's the solution though? How do you get him more minutes in the lineup? That's the issue. What are your ideas?
Especially for offensive zone faceoffs, I want him out there with Timmy and Brady.
Okay.
Especially when you know the faceoff's going to be on the left side, you know Brady can take those draws.
So then you're not having Giroux taking those draws then.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, was Giroux helping in the faceoff dot last night?
No, but we talked about it. Like, just because he had one bad night doesn't mean you just abandon the number 1 faceoff percentage guy in the NHL. So that's why I'm interested to see how you manage getting Zetterlund up without depleting another player's ice time and role.
Yeah, I think that you still get Giroux out there, but you need that top line to give you more high danger quality chances. And Zetterlund's game is all centered around high danger chances. Who's the better shooter, Giroux or Zetterlund? Zetterlund. And he needs to be out there.
Don't get it twisted. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just expanding the conversation. And especially Zetterlund is such a tenacious player. Like, even away from the puck, I find he's very aggressive and he plays a good physical style game. And you get the perfect trio with Timmy, Brady, and Zetterlund. You got Timmy, the playmaker. He can set it up to Zetterlund. You got Zetterlund, the shoot first guy. He's going to be trying to get pucks towards the net. And then you've got your net front guy in Brady right there, ready to cause chaos, get tips, screen the goalie, get rebounds. So as a trio, they make a lot of sense for sure.
So if not there, would you move him into one of the other lines? Because Ottawa didn't get the matchup with Shane Pinto that they wanted. That's going to be a home ice advantage thing. Tim Stützle was the option that the Toronto Maple Leafs wanted to put up against Austin Matthews. And at 5-on-5, Timmy did fine. But does that impact at all how you would set things up the way that you don't have last change?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because it's something you can't really control. But I do like the idea of Zetterlund on that line. And they tried it for a little bit with Batherson and Cousins. I know you got a lot of faith in Perron in this series, Ross, and I do too. But at times, you just need a little bit more jump there. And both Zetterlund and Perron, in my opinion, are shoot first guys. And I wouldn't mind seeing Zetterlund get some time on that line from time to time. But that's the thing. Then you got veteran guys like Giroux and Perron that are used to getting a lot of minutes and they want to be on those spots. And you're bumping them down there. It's a tough thing to do.
Yeah, it's not only a tough thing to do, but you got to do it against really good players. And look, we respect the high-end offense that Toronto Maple Leafs have, but I don't think the Sens should be playing this series on how to defend that. And I think a way that they can push the pace and they can dictate a little bit more is by having one of their quick strike offensive weapons playing more than 9 minutes in this game. And I'm not saying Zetterlund's going to be the difference between winning or losing the series. He played 10-50 all in all, and I guess some of that was on the power play. But even in that, he had a shot and 4 hits, and the shot almost went in the back of the net. So that's one adjustment that I would like to see going into the next game. The other one, and this is going to be a little bit harder, but They have to play Jake Sanderson 28, 30 minutes. I did not like the Thomas Chabot, Nick Jensen pair. I thought that they gave up a little bit too much, not only on those 2 goals, but I'm not advocating for Clevin and Matt and Palo to play more. They were at 11 minutes in this game.
That's where you want them to be. Yeah,
exactly. But Chabot and Jensen at 5-on-5 had more ice time than Sanderson and Zub. I just don't see that as a recipe for success.
Yep, agreed. Yeah, and I think another adjustment, and it was kind of a point of conversation in the post-game pressers, is the Sens are going to have to find out ways to battle the Leafs in the slot and deal with the boxing out of the Leafs defensemen better, because the Sens game is not waiting and biding your time to get into high danger scoring opportunities and capitalizing on them. That would be nice, but let's stick in reality here. That's not the Sens game. The Sens game is getting pucks towards the net, battling for those rebounds, and getting those garbage, greasy goals. And that's fine. In the playoffs, that's how you got to do it. That's how the Batherson goal goes in to get their first goal of the playoffs. And this Leafs defense, this team is set up a certain way. High, heavy loaded up top with the core 4 guys. And when they get their chances, they capitalize on them. We saw that. And almost strictly defensive play by the defenseman. Like Morgan Rielly gets a goal, sure, but that's a deflection, and he's probably their most offensive defenseman, maybe OEL in that category too. He scores as well. But the rest of the guys like Tanev, Carlo, McCabe, these guys are Benoit. These guys are all about physicality and defensive play. The Leafs have one of the lowest scoring back ends in the entire league. So they don't produce offense like that, but they pride themselves on being a defensively sound team when it comes to their defensemen. And we saw that there. And Brady Tkachuk talked about it. They got to find ways to beat out those box outs in front of the net. And that's going to be something I'm looking for in game 2.
Yeah, the high danger chances have to improve for the Ottawa Senators, because when McCabe and Tanev, the shutdown pair for the Toronto Maple Leafs, were out there for 15 and a half minutes at 5-on-5 last night, the shot attempts were 22-5 for Ottawa. They got attempts, and unblocked shot attempts 14-2 for Ottawa. That's lopsided.
But the Leafs are letting them play that game. They're saying,
exactly.
Hey, you want to take those perimeter shots, go ahead. But I'm not saying cut down on the perimeter shots necessarily. Maybe try to get better high danger scoring opportunities. That goes without saying. But that's the Sens game, is get low shots on net, create traffic in front, get screens, tips, rebounds, and find ways to bury it. And that's how they're going to have to play to be successful here, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how Travis Green reacts. Senators are on an off-ice team meeting today at noon in Toronto. They will not skate today. We will have to wait until tomorrow to see if there are any lineup adjustments, and most notably, will Nick Cousins sneak in to get his Senators playoff debut? Pillsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the same final thought I had for the postcast, Ross, just in case people missed it. We got to talk about this, and it pains me to see that this is happening, because this was supposed to be the script for the Sens beating the Toronto Maple Leafs, was to create doubt in the crease game 1. I cannot comprehend Sens fans that are calling for Levi Merelainen to start game 2. That absolutely blows my mind. I couldn't be more against that theory. I disavow anyone that's suggesting that. You have Linus Ullmark as your guy that you brought in to be the number 1, and you're suggesting call up a guy that has under 15 games NHL experience just because Ullmark had one off game 1. You got to give this guy a chance to get going. That was his whole issue with being in Boston, is Swayman was right there, and as soon as he had a bad game, he's like, I'm done, so they're going to put Swayman in now. You cannot do that. Linus Ullmark, for this year, for this playoffs, has to be shown that he has the confidence of this team and is trusted, and he needs to start every single game, in my opinion. The idea of thinking about switching goalies in game 2 is insane to me, and they cannot do it. Linus Ullmark's going to bounce back. I feel confident about it. For all the Sens fans that were going crazy in the regular season saying, start Linus Ullmark every game, don't ever rest him, he's carrying this team on his back. You can't switch now after one game. Come on. What is that? That is absolute garbage, in my opinion. You got to show this guy that you have faith in him. Linus Ullmark is our guy. And the only chance the Sens have of winning this series is with Linus Ullmark.
Humor me. If Travis Green were to make a change at some point in this series, would he go with Forsberg or Merilainen?
Probably Merilainen. Yeah. Like
I think I would want him to, but I don't think he would.
Yeah, I don't. That
would be a bold. It would be a bold decision,
especially if Merilainen is not even backing up like that. Yeah.
I'm just saying, Sens fans, watch what you wish for, because if you're like, get Ullmark, it's not going to be Merilainen. I want it to be. I know that he can step up. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, and I mean, Merilainen doesn't even have AHL playoff experience. Like to throw him,
one game.
But that, yeah. But to throw him in like that and be like, oh, finally we have our savior, we're going to be good now, it is a little out there, in my opinion. I know Linus Ullmark's playoff numbers haven't been great, and you can point to that. And last night, unfortunately, that trend continued. But you got to give this guy a chance. If you go to someone else, it just creates such a different dynamic, and that's when you get that doubt creeping in. And that's what I wanted to happen to the Leafs, not happen to the Sens. So there can be no thought or question that Linus Ullmark is the guy.
Game 2 tomorrow in Toronto. We'll have a game day preview for you. We will be back with that. Let us know in the comments your thoughts and adjustments after game 1, 6-2. The Senators lose to the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's all for us today. Thank you for liking, watching, listening, and subscribing to the show. Be a friend. Tell a friend about LOSP. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.